if you haven't had conflict with a friend yet, you haven't yet reached peak intimacy in friendship. Peace is a luxury, a rare jewel in this world. It costs boundaries, discipline, and sometimes even relationships to protect it. But here's what I know for sure. It's worth it. I've learned that peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you protect and defend fearlessly with your life. So today, we're talking about how to protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. So if you've ever felt emotionally drained, overstimulated, or spread too thin, then this episode is for you. Let's figure this out together on The Glo Show.
So,
All right, y'all. Welcome back to Season 3, How to Glow in the Dark. If you're new here, stand up. Introduce yourself. Everybody clap. Welcome. So where's part of going to a new church? Okay, so in the last episode, we talked about how consistency is greater than confidence. But let's say you get consistent and now you're glowing up and everyone around you notices. And all of a sudden they want access to you constantly. And you have to figure out who is worth compromising my peace for, who is going to be someone that I kind of take in as an assignment. They might have a lot of tumultuous energy, but you feel called to help and mentor them. And then who are people that you have to have that hard conversation with of recognizing where you're going and where they're going are two different places. So I'm going to tell a story of the first time I realized, oh, I'm not protecting my peace. I used to give out my cell phone number. This was, 12 years ago, even 10 years ago. I would give out my cell phone number really casually. I was no one. So I didn't have any reason to fear that it would be misused or passed around. I didn't see myself. I wasn't anybody in the world. So I had no reason to believe that, oh, one day this will haunt you or this will come back to bite you. And I gave out my number, and a lot of people started to see that I was doing something different. And so they had questions, and I was happy to answer them. But I also had that feeling of like, well, I don't know that much yet because I'm still on my way. And you might be asking yourself that, like, am I qualified to teach something if I'm still in the middle of my own journey? The answer is yes. But when people were asking me certain questions, I would answer to the best of my ability. And I also didn't recognize how much I was gaining in intellectual capital, how much my experience alone was putting me in a lane of my own. And so more and more people just started to reach out to me. And then it got to a point where people I didn't know were texting me questions of like, they could be, I don't know, on a flight to London and I'll get a text like, hey, I'm landing in London in an hour. Tell me what to do. Where should I go? Where should I eat? Do you have any hotel recommendations? And I'm like, who are you? Who are you? But out of fear that like, oh, maybe someone that I know or I'm good friends with, maybe they gave my number out. So let me do this as a favor to my friend. And I wouldn't even ask like, how'd you get my number? I would just assume that, okay, if someone is giving out my number like this, you're probably good people. So let me go ahead and help. And I was doing this again in my 20s. So if you're just like, Glo, I didn't know better, okay? I was just like, okay, let me just do this, this one time. And then it became 2 times, then it became 10 times. And sometimes you do things out of this forced obligation. No one is actually forcing you at gunpoint to do anything, but you feel this internal conflict because you haven't yet established what your boundaries are. And I was someone who was just so ambitious, so hungry, so lost and on her way. So I figured that let me treat every conversation or every interaction like it could be my breaking point. Like it's the most important conversation that I could have. And let me just establish this reputation as someone who is incredibly helpful, resourceful, and generous. And that part served me well. I actually really appreciated that if my name was brought up when I wasn't in the room, you would hear the words generous, helpful, resourceful, friendly, kind, just creative. Like you would hear a lot of positive terms. So I was trying to build my reputation as someone who didn't feel like they had one or even like a platform. And then where it got to be an issue is people would then like start to kind of form parasocial relationships with me. So then they would text me, but it wasn't about travel. It was about, hey, my boyfriend, I got caught in cheating. Like, what would you do? How would you approach the situation? And I'm literally like, huh? What? Oh, your girl was a lost cause. I was like, okay, well, no chat GPT back then. It's gonna be weird to be saying that. No chat GPT back then. I'm not even like oh, like, back in my day, not even trying to say it like that, but it is interesting how much ChatGPT and AI have infiltrated our everyday life that we have to kind of put that disclaimer, like there was no ChatGPT to assist in this conversation. So yeah, I'm helping people break up with their boyfriends and send text messages. And I was first known for my ability to write and communicate and storytell. So when people needed a unique or friendly way to say something, I don't know, I don't even want to say friendly, but they needed a sharp or witty or direct or I don't know, you didn't trust yourself to say the right thing. People came to me for that. So I'm literally mediating conversations between friends, between boyfriend and girlfriend, between work situations, brand deals. People often emailed me like, hey, this brand is asking for this clause and how do I fight back? Is this fair? And I'm like, okay, here's an email, copy and paste this exactly. And I was so like, I was for the people, I told myself. But I realized I started to resent my phone and resent my text messages and resent like my phone is the thing that was building my brand and my business. It was my only camera. I didn't have a big camera or anything professional yet. So my phone was the thing that was helping me build my dream. And at the same time, it was this source of resentment because I didn't know what demands people were going to inflict on me that day. I would wake up in the morning to 10 text messages of favors and constant asks and requests. Asks. And maybe you're listening to this and you're like, oh, Chloe, like, why don't you just say no? And I'll offer this because for those who didn't grow up with friends, for those who were the last to be chosen, For those who sat by themselves at the lunch table, you didn't know what it was about you that made people not want to be your friend. And so you grew up thinking something's wrong with me. Like I'm not chosen. People are not befriending me. And mind you, people were friendly with me. And I, had my pockets of, I don't know, phases where I acclimated to what was popular in order to be accepted. But if I was my most authentic self, I was sitting by myself at the lunch table in elementary and middle school because I remember I would just feel like, I don't know, we could be 10 years old and I would be trying to force conversation or have conversations with your classmates. And I'm just like, this is so boring. I don't want to talk about this. So I would often stay behind and like hang out with the teachers or the janitor, or I don't know, I would just befriend the staff. So I feel like that aged me at a young age. The fact that I was always hanging out with the adults and I didn't really feel like I could relate to the kids. So I say all that to say, growing up or now in your 20s where you have all this autonomy, you're out of university or college and you're able to kind of go out into the world on a fresh slate and say, okay, now I can build friendships not out of proximity, but out of values. So what does that look like? And it was just such a confusing time for me because I wanted to be a kind person. I wanted to establish myself as trustworthy and reliable and resourceful. But I also didn't yet know who would be that back to me. So slowly but surely, I started to recognize, okay, this person is a taker. This person is a leech. This person is exhausting. Like you start to, feel like, okay, these people aren't good for me. And the first thing I had to recognize is that people won't create a boundary where one doesn't exist. So you might think, oh, this person literally texts me 5 questions a day for like a week straight. They won't cut themselves off if you are answering every single question. They won't create a boundary if you're not establishing one. So I think it's so important to just like reflect on the times where you felt like, oh, wouldn't they think that that's weird? What if they stop themselves from like harassing? Harassing. Okay, I'm projecting. Wouldn't they stop themselves from bombarding my phone? Blowing up my phone 5 times a day. Isn't that something that they would innately start to feel guilty about? No. Takers have no conscience. Sorry, let me be groundless. This is a wholesome podcast, Glo. You're going to be kind. You're going to be nice to the people. Takers have a hard time distinguishing what's not up for grabs. And they see everything as their territory. And yeah, it's just a really powerful thing to establish the first boundary. So my first tip, we all have varying levels of baggage. So what have you and haven't you unpacked? We can both come into a room and we both have one check-in suitcase, but one person unpacks the check-in suitcase and hangs all their clothes in the closet. And each time they take out an article of clothing, they can assess it like, oh, this is wrinkled, or oh, this is old, or oh, wow, I didn't know that I brought this. I don't think I'm going to wear it. And let me go ahead and throw it away. But one by one, each time they put an article of clothing in a dresser or drawer, they're able to unpack and assess like what they actually brought to the room. If someone else comes with their baggage and they shove it in the corner and say, I don't need that stuff yet, I'll unpack it once I'm ready to change tomorrow or something. And the person that you probably trust more to communicate with or be in relationship or friendship with is the one that assesses their baggage. So I recognize I was attracting a lot of people with unpacked baggage. And I was helping them like unpack their baggage with them and for them. And I said, wait, how did I get this wrong? Okay, so you have to like take responsibility for the part that you played and how people treat you. And that's a really harsh thing to sit with. Because you're like, wait, why do I keep getting taken advantage of? Wait, why do people treat me like a doormat? Wait, when have I expressed that I don't like being treated like this? And you have to be okay when disappointing someone, of course. And then worst case scenario, losing them. And you might fear like, well, I don't want to lose them in my life. Someone who takes advantage of you, why would you want to keep them in your life? It's important to recognize that you deserve better and better exists, but sometimes you have to release what you're currently carrying. Okay, tip number two in this episode of The Cost of Peace is over explaining is a fast track to emotional exhaustion. And I still struggle with this. I remember I was with a friend, we were in Costa Rica, and we took, I think it was a time lapse or a photo. And I love kombucha. Kombucha is amazing. I'm 3 years sober, but I love kombucha. So sometimes to feel like I'm still an adult and I'm, indulging in wine, I pour my kombucha in wine glasses. And that photo had a wine glass with my kombucha in it. And of course, everyone in the room knew that it was kombucha. But I was thinking, I'm like, oh, wait, I can't post this because people will think that I'm no longer sober and I need to make sure that they understand that this is my commitment. And she was like, well, Chloe, why do you have to explain yourself? Like, let people think what they want. And I think the thing about releasing the idea that people will always understand you is that fear of loss of control. Because if you don't control your narrative, someone else will take it and run with it. And what I've learned watching powerful people, like I love documentaries, autobiographies on musicians, artists, writers, athletes, it's so powerful to see their story being told through the lens of someone else. Because if you don't put out your own narrative, someone else will feel entitled to create their own. And that's not always fair to the person, especially if they're deceased. So I was mindful, like, wait, I need to be able to like show people, like, I'm committed to this. This is something that I didn't take lightly. And so I need them to see if they watch, one story a month on my page and they see this one story and they go ahead and say, oh, she's no longer sober. And that's what they run with. I was like, I need to control the narrative. And then we talked more about it. I was like, actually, who cares? I got to a point because, I love that she invited me to, just push my perspective deeper. Like, she's like, okay. And I was like, well, it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess. And then later recognize just, I'm always looking into ADHD quirks and mannerisms. And ADHD people fear being misunderstood because for most of our life, when we were undiagnosed, we were misunderstood. We were too chaotic, too scattered, too hyperactive, too inattentive. All of these like negative, you know, words that they attributed to our behavior and character. We were constantly trying to explain, like, no, like I'm here, I'm listening. Can you repeat that one more time? Or can you talk slower? Or can you show me once again? And where did I put it? Like all these like small things that you might be labeled irresponsible for, you're trying to explain. Well, you don't even know yet that your brain is wired differently and your prefrontal cortex is differently abled. So I think that trauma and that fear of like my whole life, I've had to over explain myself to just be at the default. So it like taps a little bit into that trauma. But it does get exhausting to constantly feel like you need to always explain yourself. So I am on that path of just like letting things be as they are and not explaining what is understood. A podcast conversation like this, I can of course go into context, but I don't always have to explain myself if I don't desire to give and letting that be okay. And tip number three, not everything deserves a response, and even fewer things deserve a reaction. So if you find yourself scrolling on threads, on Facebook, I don't know, wherever the kids hang out these days, and you are constantly wanting to inject your 2 cents into things that you disagree with, or you aren't aligned with, or it just doesn't apply to you. I think that's the hardest one. People can't ignore things that don't apply to them. But it's important that you recognize every time you are triggering an emotional response from your body and then putting it out into the world. And your body is literally you're raising your blood pressure for no reason. And Pastor Mike Todd had a sermon where he talked about something first happens in your mind. Like you think about something and then it comes into your heart and then you do it with your hands. So in your mind, if you feel triggered by, oh my goodness, like I can't believe they would say that. And then your heart, you're like, oh, that I could never. And oh my gosh, like I must stand up for my values. And this is not, you know, this shouldn't be on the internet. And then you use your hands to actually carry out the action of like the dissertation comment. At what point? I've never seen someone change their beliefs through a heated Facebook comment thread. And never seen anyone change their mind through just a chaotic back and forth of Instagram. So we have to recognize, okay, I don't have to be everyone's teacher. Let life teach people on their own time and be okay with people at different parts of their journey than you. You might have recently come into enlightenment and you feel very awakened and you're just like, wow, why can't everyone think like me? Why can't my healing, just cover the world? Lord. But it's important to let people be on their journey. Like, don't feel responsible for other people's ignorance. Constantly guide and lead or teach where you feel led, but don't always feel responsible to be everyone's teacher on the internet. Okay. So when you sit with yourself, are you able to think about your goals and dreams, or are you managing the chaos of other people's emotions and expectations? That's something to think about. If you are meditating, are you allowing yourself to be like, okay, meditation is just about sitting with yourself. But when the thoughts do inevitably come up, are you thinking about my goals, my dreams? Oh, I can't wait for this trip. Are you able to like spend that precious time on you? Or are you replaying conversations of people that have hurt you? Are you wishing you can confront and rehearse how to talk to that person? Like, are you spending that precious time worrying about your engagements with other people? Because that's where you might be able to first recognize that your peace has not been protected. And I would start there. So your assignment for this episode, I want you to go to futurewe.org. If you're a client, you've heard me say this website a million times, so you're probably sick of it. But I want you to postpone the return date for 30 days from today, whenever you're listening. And in that letter that you're writing to your future self, I want you to list all the things that are currently disrupting your peace. List every single thing that is disrupting your peace today. And then when you get that email of that letter in a month's time, all the things that haven't dissipated must be addressed. Because it's natural for something to happen. You're going to think about it for a couple days, it lingers. But if in 30 days, it is still disrupting your peace and triggering you, you need to have the conversation. You need to make that decision. You need to confront that coworker. You need to break up with that person. Like whatever it is that you've been like afraid to do, it's time to do it. And I speak from this convicting place because I've been in that situation so many times where I've had to put a 30-day calendar reminder. Like, well, you're not letting another month pass by, letting this disrespectful person stay in your life. Like, it's time to say something. It's time to own up. It's time to have that conversation. Okay? Nigerian proverb time. A restless foot may walk into a snake's hole. A restless foot may walk into a snake's hole. A restless foot may walk into a snake's hole. What does that mean? If you don't have peace and you are just anxiously moving about, it is so easy to stumble into danger. It's so easy to find yourself trapped in a situation. If you are constantly on edge, constantly anxious, constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, understand that like every step that you take could put yourself in further danger because you are not fully present with yourself. And a scripture to take with you is Philippians 4:7. And we're going to read from the NIV version. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. There is a peace. I always know when I'm in just great, I don't want to say great standing. God's my bestie. I know when Jesus is my homie because I feel at peace that there is no physical, material circumstance that could match up. Like it's a peace that's so inexplainable. I'm like, oh, this is God. The only way I could feel this level of assurance and ease and calm is when I'm really tapped into the word. So I love those moments and those seasons because I just be floating. You can live floating. That's the best. And mind you, things could still be happening in the background. Chaos, madness, world burning down. But I know what the word says. I know what his promises are. Yes and amen. I am fully covered by his grace. And I just feel like that's the only peace I want in this world. Because if I try to manufacture peace with daily massages, which I've tried to do in the past, reading new book every week, I've done that. Going on walk, I've done that. But those pieces are both temporary and circumstantial. And you don't want your peace to be short-lived if you are trying to sustain it for the rest of your life. So understand that peace comes from a greater source, and that invitation to tap into that source will always be there. An affirmation to take with you is I'm a happier and healthier person when I'm at peace. I'm a happier and healthier person when I'm at peace. Okay, Q&A time to wrap up this episode. Anonymous. I love that this isn't a question, but this person had a couple anonymous um, questions or statements, so I'm going to spread them out. But for this one, they just said, please discuss friendship breakups. And this feels very, I don't know, on par for this episode. So I'll say the first thing. Friendship breakups are inevitable. I don't want to say how many I've had because I can't really count like, oh, because here's the thing. You don't want to say, oh, because you grew apart from someone, that was a friendship breakup. What I consider a friendship breakup is an actual conversation of like, this is no longer working for me or for either of us or whatever, however you frame it. And you both make an intentional decision to remove yourself from each other's lives or to not speak again. Maybe that sounds dramatic, but that's what I consider a friendship breakup. So I think I've had 5. I I've been in conflict with more than 5, of course. And conflict, I also want to say, if you haven't had conflict with a friend yet, you haven't yet reached peak intimacy in friendship. Okay, let's put that to the side. Let me stay on track. So first part, friendship breakups are inevitable. So I want you to get really good at clear and kind communication. It's important to be honest. It's important to be transparent. It's important to be vulnerable. And it's important to be clear. When something hurts you, don't wait a year. I did this in the past. I waited a year to tell them. And in that time, I had slowly grown out of the friendship because I was so hurt and I was so confused by, okay, maybe it was a one-time thing. And then when it happened again, it was harder. It was even harder to say it the second time because then I was stacking my hurt on each other, leaving no room for repair. So there's 2 ways to go about this. When someone hurts you, if you truly believe in holding on to the friendship, you should let them know as soon as possible. Chances are, of course, that person, if they're your friend, they did not want to hurt you. On the other hand, if you're saying, well, I need to see, maybe they just had a bad day, so I don't want to make a big deal out of it, or it feels awkward to, be vulnerable and say that you hurt my feelings. Wah. And so maybe you think, let me just wait it out because that wasn't that big of a deal. And yeah, it hurt, but whatever, I've moved on. But the second time they do it, now it's even harder to say, well, the first time you did it actually hurt. The second time feels like a punch. And I think if the first time is a slit and the second one is a punch, the third one, like you're just re-injuring the same wound. So if that's who someone is, now you have to decide, am I able to tolerate that? Because all of these other good qualities, we're all imperfect. But does this negative thing that actually impacts our relationship, does that outweigh all the good qualities about them? And that's something that you have to ask yourself. Because if it doesn't, then yes, the friendship breakup should happen. And it's not always about saying you're a bad person, get out of my life. It's, hey, I feel like I'm going in this direction and maybe you're going in another. You might grow up with someone, but you can also grow apart from someone. And proximity is not enough to sustain a lifelong friend. And I also want to believe that some of my best friends I haven't met yet. I have an incredible community, circle, network, friend group, plural. I have incredible people in my life. And spanning from over 20 years to even in the last 2 years, I feel very blessed by the support and the friendships I have in my life. And even with that said, I know that there's still so much life ahead, God willing, that there are still more friends and best friends to be made. And I'm excited about that. So see friendship endings as new beginnings to pursue connections that are maybe more aligned with who you're becoming, not just what you've survived. Because if we base a connection off of proximity or common interests, that might fizzle out. But if your connection or friendship is based on values and shared goals, that's a little bit of a stronger bond that you could have.
So thank you for uh, asking me to talk about this because I feel like it could also be a whole episode in itself. But that's all we got for today, y'all. The cost of peace. I hope you enjoyed this one. And if you learned anything, please screenshot this episode wherever you're listening or watching on YouTube. Rate and review if you enjoyed. Share with a friend, and I will see you. Yeah, that was a lot of demands and asks. I gave y'all like a list of things to do. Okay, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.